Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. This is the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, further to a 10% tax hike on sweet drinks, government is now considering banning them in schools altogether. This announcement from Minister of Health John Boyce, who expressed his concern about the rising levels of obesity among children. Sharika Griffith has more.
Addressing a regional workshop on alcohol, tobacco and sugar-sweetened drinks, Health Minister John Boyce notes that most Caribbean countries share similar history, which placed rum and sugar at the center of their development. There's therefore no surprise that Caribbean people have a strong preference for alcohol and sugary drinks. However, they now pose a threat to their well-being if immediate action is not taken. And given that children account for half of the deaths resulting from diabetes and strokes in the Caribbean, the Ministry of Health is proposing a ban on sweet drinks in schools.
The Ministry of Health in Barbados is currently preparing a set of policy options to address the marketing of unhealthy foods to children while they're at school. Consideration will be given to a ban on the sales and/or promotion of sugary sweetened beverages on the premises of our schools.
2 years after a 10% tax on sweet drinks was implemented, its effectiveness is still being measured, and Minister John Boyce says education alone will not result in people making healthier choices. And even though some will oppose more taxes to alcohol, tobacco and sweet drinks, government remains committed to improving public health.
As a government, our role is to protect the health and well-being of our citizens. Therefore, we must use whatever legal and policy measures that are at our disposal to make it easier for people to choose a healthy snack, to eat in a smoke-free environment, in a restaurant, or for our children to have access to healthy meals in and around our schools.
Dr. Boyce believes all governmental departments, the private sector and the general public must get on board to ensure the success of the fight against NCDs. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
And Sharika, thanks very much. The Caribbean is making sure that it is adequately prepared for any cyber attack. This comes in light of the recent global attack from a computer virus that has impacted several businesses across the world. To avoid these threats, Caribbean businesses are being told to develop an effective system to manage information technology continuity risk. The advice comes from Regional Risk Assurance Leader for PricewaterhouseCoopers network of Caribbean firms, Bruce Scott. He says cyber attacks are becoming a major issue and the region must protect itself.
There's this whole thing about ransomware now, where somebody can literally break into your systems and encrypt files that are important to you that could cause you not to be able to do basic services like paying your staff or, wiring money to your suppliers. That's a problem. Now, if that were to happen to you, how would you continue the business? Were you backing up the data? Did you have another server in another location? Would your people know what to do? Are those decisions already documented? And even if you take it outside the context of ransomware and cyber, you could lose your IT systems for other reasons.
Well, speaking at PwC's Risk Assurance Breakfast Conference at Radisson Aquatica, he said the Caribbean has excelled in the areas of credit and liquidity risk management. However, improvements are needed in regulatory, disaster and people risk. He's also added that fire safety should never be neglected as it could have some serious implications.
What if there was a fire in your computer room and you are servicing a large retail outlet with point-of-sale systems that customers need to use to pay for their goods and services, and you don't have a IT disaster recovery plan that will seamlessly, the customers shouldn't even know that there was an issue. A lot of Caribbean companies have not taken this particular risk as serious as they should, and many times when they suffer like this, they go out of business because the damage is just too severe.
Well, researchers are pointing a finger at North Korea as the culprit behind last week's massive cyber attack.
Researchers are uncovering new clues in this huge global cyber attack. Clues that could, and I need to emphasize, could lead to North Korean hackers. On the same weekend, North Korea launched perhaps its most dangerous ballistic missile yet, A more insidious threat was creeping into computer systems around the world. A massive global cyber attack, 300,000 machines targeted in 150 countries. And now, early clues point to North Korea and its supreme leader, Kim Jong-un's growing army of digital hackers. It's an army of thousands, kept hidden in the shadows, even as Pyongyang proudly puts the rest of its military and missile arsenal on display. CNN has learned cybersecurity researchers are finding similarities between the WannaCry code in this latest attack and malware created by North Korean hackers called Lazarus Group. You may remember the Lazarus Group, linked to the devastating 2014 hack of Sony Pictures and a 2016 attack on a global banking system. A Google researcher discovered the code similarities along with cybersecurity firm Symantec. Their spokesperson tells CNN, while these connections exist, they so far only represent weak connections. We are continuing to investigate for stronger connections. Experts do that by investigating the code, comparing it to previous hacks linked to Pyongyang. Some hackers even use other people's code to throw investigators off their tracks, which means it could take weeks or months to officially name a suspect.
Well, we clearly see that the focus here and abroad continues to be on that massive malware attack. And incidentally, it comes as Barbados is celebrating everything related to internet and communications technology. Now, Clifford Bostic, the Deputy Chief Telecommunications Officer, joins us live now via Skype to talk about these and other issues. Mr. Bostic, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, let's start with that topical issue, that malware attack. How vulnerable are we in Barbados to such an event?
I think we are quite vulnerable. The experts have determined that this is due to a vulnerability that's available on Windows XP, which is no longer supported by Microsoft Windows. Windows 8 as well as Server 2003. These are the three ones that they have identified, and we are almost certain that some customers in Barbados and businesses may have some of these operating systems in place. If they do, the first thing that they need to do is to upgrade or change out these operating systems. One of the other things that they should always do is to back up their systems and applications and data, so that should they suffer any attack like this, that they could recover in the short term.
So you talked about, Mr. Bostic, changing and upgrading your systems, but we also heard the probability that the hackers, even though people can do the patches to mitigate against this system going any further, that the hackers may very well change and come back again. Some people were predicting as early as this week. Going forward, how do people, businesses protect themselves?
Well, businesses especially, and to some extent citizens, really have to take computer security just as serious as they take the security of their health and so on and so forth, and the security of their homes and so on. Because that's where the industrial revolution is taking place, in the use of data, the access to the internet of things, where we're going to have lots of sensors and so on, controlling and helping us in our lives in terms of health, social activity, financing and so on. So we need to take precautions and make sure that we know exactly what kinds of
incidentally, have you heard of any businesses or individuals here in Barbados being affected by the one that attacked last weekend?
No, we haven't had any official reports as yet. No, but we generally know in Barbados, hacking is not reported quickly. We usually hear about it when something goes wrong and we ask to assist. But so far, we haven't heard of any instances in Barbados.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. It is World Telecommunications and Information Society Day coming up. I know you've already had a church service to celebrate this, but what are the activities are planned for this week?
Yes, we are planning to have on Thursday evening at St. Leonard's Boys School a panel discussion. It's on our website, the details. We expect a large following because we're going to be discussing big data. We're going to be discussing big data for big impact. We know this is going to be the next industrial revolution where data is going to be mined and secured and harnessed to provide information that helps businesses, helps governments, helps individuals to be more proactive and to make decisions that are informed by creditable data. That's where the revolution is going to take place. We expect the Internet of Things where lots of sensors in your homes for medical purposes, smart cities, smart education, and so on, to help us develop the culture that we need to go forward. And that's going to present large volumes of data that's very useful to mankind. As a matter of fact, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that were set by the United Nations and expected to be in place by 2013 will help with development, to remove poverty, to help economies, to help have sustainable developing states that are able to respond to disasters and so on. Those will be useful once we are able to mine the data, as well as have a lot of expertise in helping our young people and our entrepreneurs to benefit from this revolution that's about to take place.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Clifford Bostic joining us live via Skype, and he is the Deputy Chief Telecommunications Officer here in Barbados. Thank you very much, Mr. Bostic. And we'll take a break here, but we'll bring you more news in just a few moments.
BMX 2017, I hope to see you there. From the 2nd to the 5th of June, 10 to 10 every day. With fashion and entertainment, furniture and design, food, services and activities with the whole family in mind. So come to the Lloyd Skin Sandy Foot Center, don't you stick. BMX 2017, we going back to basics. We going back to basics. BMX.
Entertaining.
Nothing can stop me. Today will be a great day. Nothing can stop me. I only know the way.
Educating.
A real man and a real woman having sex, and she's saying, Mom, and you should see the man moving.
You have individuals coming from Christian homes who will not want some of their children.
14 and 15 and 16-year-olds need to be equipped with knowledge and skills.
Informing.
I'm quite agree. We have a hotline number 4672725. If you encounter anything on the highway, Charlene is on the line. Charlene, good morning.
Good morning.
We are CBC TV 8.
England sees Barbados as a bridge to building relations with the wider Caribbean. Visiting Governor General Dame Patsy Reddy says the two countries share a long-standing relationship, partnering in a number of areas. Dame Patsy, who was sworn in as Governor General in September 2016, and her husband Sir David Gascon are on their first visit to the island. Her latest engagement was a reception held with Barbadians who completed studies in New Zealand and the Diplomatic Corps at the Hilton Hotel.
These ties have been strengthened by the opening of our High Commission here in 2014 and our cooperation on the international stage on climate change and small island issues. I had the great honour to call on your Governor-General and your Prime Minister earlier today. I was also delighted to meet with women from the creative and business communities in Barbados. The common theme from all of these meetings was a joint commitment to sustainable development and innovation, and the desire to continue to build and enhance the links between our two countries.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Senator Maxine McLean says Barbados and New Zealand continue to maintain a productive and friendly history.
Climate change being one of those, and I know that Prime Minister Stewart would have been welcomed to your lovely country when he was attending a recent conference in Samoa. I personally have a strong interest in youth entrepreneurship and the creative industries, and I know that both you, Dame Patsy and Sir David, have an interest in the cultural services sector. We in Barbados have been promoting that as an avenue for utilizing the talents of our young people, and I look forward to working with your very hard-working High Commissioner.
Barbados saw a spike in accidents at work in 2011 and 2012, with injuries to the upper extremities the most reported. That's according to the latest statistics released by the Barbados Employers Confederation. The figures, published in the BEC's World Safety Day edition of its Safety and Health magazine, take into account accidents reported to the Labour Department between 2011 and 2015. Safety coordinator at the Confederation and editor of the magazine, Melanie James, says, however, since 2013, those figures dropped.
Since the proclamation of the Act, we have seen a reduction in almost all areas. And I do believe that with the information that has been set out there by the Labour Department and from other players within the employment relations sector, whether it was the union or the BEC, I think the information that employers and employees would have gathered during the period would have linked to a reduction in accidents. And that may have been because of risk assessments, increased training, whatever control measure the employer used and the employees implemented, it led to a reduction in the accidents over time.
According to Ms. James, hotels and restaurants account for most of the incidents reported in the workplace up to 2015, with more than 500 in 2011. She says this may be because tourism employs the largest number of people on the island.
If you compare Barbados to, say, Trinidad, Jamaica, or even internationally, construction usually carries the highest number of accidents. And in 2011, again, we saw in the hotel industry way above 450 accidents. And yet again, in 2012, it was still around 375. So the average for over the 4-year span would have been about 275 for 5 years, the 5-year span, 275 accidents per year. And if this is this is the information that we have, but the question becomes, is it completely accurate?
Barbados is being told that structural reform should not be about making cuts alone. According to economist Professor Winston Moore, growth enhancement measures should be part of fiscal consolidation. Professor Moore was a guest on CBC TV8's Morning Barbados.
One of the things that we did quite nicely in the early 1990s is that we put in place measures that would reduce the burden on the private sector in terms of doing business. So, and therefore, when the economy did turn around, then they have opportunities to enhance growth and therefore earn greater revenue. So I think we also need to be looking at areas to enhance growth going forward in the future. We have a couple of opportunities which have been doing pretty well over the last couple of years. So tourism has been doing quite well in the first quarter. U.S. arrivals, Canadian arrivals have been doing quite well. The U.K. market has been slowing, but that is something that can be worked on.
Chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Charles Herbert, believes there's potential for growth in the future for the island. He, however, stresses that the current problem does not lie solely in economic growth.
We have a crisis of government financing. The economy and the economy's growth is not what's going to solve that, and it is not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is a crisis of government financing. I think the growth is possible, and I think if in fact we get our act strongly together, there is much stronger potential for growth.
Commercial fires in Barbados are trending downward, and the Barbados Fire Service is attributing this to businesses taking greater interest in fire safety. Andrew Taylor of the Research and Planning Unit says many are taking advantage of programs offered by the Fire Service.
Conducted by the Fire Prevention Unit, which will be the fire safety lectures and demonstrations that they conduct daily at business places across Barbados. I think that is the main catalyst for change and the cause for seeing this reduction in commercial benefit.
Station Officer Henderson Patrick says businesses are paying more attention to what is required by law.
It is the responsibility of the employers to ensure that they have the safest possible working environment for the employees. And we're seeing persons reaching out to the fire service, the fire prevention department and so on, requesting upgrading of their plans, their fire safety plans, asking for training for their personnel, which is a requirement. They often inquire about fire safety audits. They want to know what we need to put into place, what type of extinguishers and things of that nature. And people are showing a great interest in those things.
And given the close proximity of stores in Bridgetown, Mr. Patrick says there is need for greater collaboration.
You cannot see your business as independent. So if it is a situation where you can access one store by going through a side door into another store, you know, people have got to move away from the fact that this is my domain, and if an emergency occurs in one store and they cannot access the normal means of entrance and exit, then there should be an accommodation, you know, to allow those persons to access their facility without thinking that it will compromise their own safety and things of that nature. It's really working together to make better for a place like Bridgetown.
A government minister has one request for parents choosing names for babies. Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe is urging them to be resourceful when it comes to picking a name. He says parents should research the meaning of names given to children.
Some of the names are demonic. They might be fancy and pretty. They may be names after some famous person, but check the record to make sure that when you give your child a name, that name means something spiritual.
Over 700 students have graduated from the Youth Workforce Aganar program. Since its inception, the program, funded by the Inter-American Development Bank, has been ongoing for 3 years. And overall, Acting Director of Information Technology and Quality Assurance Unit of the Ministry of Education, Junior Burgess, says the program has recorded numerous successes.
The program, at the end of it, we look for two things. One, our aim is to get these students to re-enroll back in the secondary school for an additional year and to improve on their performances in terms of academia or the CVQ, NVQ programs that they're doing, one. Two, we look for students that then can move on into the world of work. So if you're not going back to school, we want to give you the skill set so you can move on into the world of work. And the third component would be where the students start their own business. We've actually had one group in videography that have gone on their own pretty much and are doing some good work.
A celebration of our uniquely Barbadian festival. That's what Blackbird Productions is promising with its second venture into junior kadooment.
A living legend and his music is the name of the band, and it pays tribute to veteran calypsonian Anthony the Mighty Gabby Carter. Band leader Sanka Price says Gabby's contribution to Barbadian culture through his music made it easy to use the calypsonian as inspiration for the band.
In seeking to come up with a theme for our second band, my wife Sonia and I wanted to portray every facet of what makes Cropover a unique Barbadian festival. We also wanted to showcase some of the significant moments in recent Barbadian history that are as topical today as they were when they first came about. And as music drives the festival, we look no further than Gabby's music because of his wide range of songs.
Jack, Boots, Hit It, and Windforce are some of the band's 6 sections, and Mr. Price says unlike other bands, their costumes tell the story of the theme. Meanwhile, the Mighty Gabby is honored by the tribute.
To pay a tribute to my music like that, it is really fantastic. And the costumes themselves, they look brilliant. I must say that they really look good. And I can imagine when you have numbers depicting each section, how effective it would be at the National Stadium and even on the street. And I love children, so to see it being done by children is even more important to me.
He has also given a hint of what's to come musically for the festival.
We've been recording a song with Griner and Rasali singing together. It's called The Two of We. I think it's going to do well.
Lorna Jones, CBC News.
Thanks, Lorna. When we come back, a look at news making headlines across the region.
What's your rhythm? 94.7 FM, the rhythm of life.
Barbados Gospel Fest in association with Quartz presents Flow One Awesome Day in association with Life 97.5 FM. Sunday, May 28th, 40 Hill National Park, 1 p.m. for the 25th Big Praise Party featuring Sinach, Jerron Nurse, John Yard, Nisha Woods, Sherry-Ann Moon, and many others. Tickets $45 advance, $55 at the door, VIP $150. Flow One Awesome Day, Sunday, May 28th, 1 p.m. 40 Hill. See you there.
I'm just a DJ, baby, mixing for you.
Only one station delivers the soundtracks of your life.
Hey, we're 94.7 FM, the University of Musical Diversity, the most frequently frequented frequency in the Caribbean. I'm the Admiral.
Put on your dancing shoes and get on the dance floor. We've got all of your classic jams right here at 94.7 FM with me, Jaquila, in the midday.
It's Valentino Tempo all over your radio right here on 94.7 every weekday afternoon, 2 until 7. It's your afternoon getaway. So join me right here, the greatest hits of the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and now.
94.7 FM.
The Jamaica Public Service Company, or JPS, is reporting that 12,000 customers in the parishes of Kingston, St. Andrew, Clarendon, St. James, St. Anne and St. Mary are now without electricity. This is the result of heavy rains since last night, which brought down some power lines. Director of Communications at JPS, Winsome Callum, says the power company has deployed its technical teams to restore service. She's asking for patience because of the challenges being presented by the current wet conditions, landslides and flooding. CARICOM trade ministers have been urged to remove impediments that are affecting inter-regional trade. This as the 44th Council for Trade and Economic Development, or COTED, wrapped up in Georgetown. We have more from Capital News.
Secretary General of CARICOM, Ambassador Orin LeBlanc, is pushing the Council for Trade and Economic Development, COTED, to send a clear signal of its determination to make a difference in the region by reaching an agreement on the regional policy for micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. Speaking at the just concluded meeting, Ambassador LeBlanc said the onus is on COTED to make the required decisions, determine the actions to be taken to fulfill the obligations, and agree on timelines for the implementation which countries must adhere to.
Our leaders, however, expressed concern that some of their decisions have not been complied with. They lamented the fact that some of our organs and bodies have failed to meet, to consider critical aspects of the CSME, and items remain much too long on the agenda of the councils. They also recognize the need for effective consultative mechanisms and addressing capacity constraints at the national level. The observations come against the backdrop of the slow pace in addressing some, and I say some, of the elements of the CSME. We have been discussing issues such as government procurement and basic contingent rights for a decade or more, without concluding on the matter.
COTED is responsible for the promotion of trade and economic development in the Caribbean community. The meeting focused on moving the CSME forward, the region's foreign trade policy, and the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union, among other matters.
The ways in which business is being conducted has a big impact on the achievement of sustainable development and growth. Abiding by the principles set out by the CSME, as well as full implementation, shall pave the way for a sustainable growth, as well as establish reliability for our business community.
The Surinamese official noted that member states must not be hindered in doing business in the region.
A peek into the world of sports is just ahead, but first, a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.